All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're doing an architectural teardown of a truly brilliant local retrieval augmented generation agent, better known as the LinkedIn SSI Booster. Look, if you've been following the AI space even a little bit, you know there's this massive, glaring difference between a flimsy prompt wrapper and a true engineering-grade autonomous system. Well, today, we're unpacking the latter. We're going to look at exactly how one developer built a completely local, truth-gated AI system to automate highly technical marketing content, all without sacrificing a single ounce of factual accuracy. It's pretty amazing. So, here's our roadmap for today's teardown. First, we'll cover the AI content drain. Second, the anatomy of a local RAG. Third, we'll dive into the intelligence stack. Fourth, building a truth gate. And finally, number 5, continual learning and memory. Let's get to it. Starting with Section 1, the AI content drain, and establishing the real-world stakes. Because, let's be honest, nobody builds a complex knowledge graph entirely from scratch just for fun. Well, okay, maybe some of us do. But in this case, there was a very real operational pain point driving the whole thing. Take a look at the massive resource drain we're dealing with here. Engineering teams and technical marketers were literally losing 80+ hours a week just manually drafting content. I mean, that's 2 full-time jobs completely eaten up by drafting. It's just an unsustainable drain on resources. Now, you might be thinking, hey, just use a basic cloud AI to write the posts, right? But the source documentation points out a critical flaw with that. Basic AI prompt wrappers, they just hallucinate generic garbage. They invent features out of thin air, they completely mess up the technical nuances, and ultimately they just destroy brand trust. So here's the catch-22. When teams realize manual work is way too slow and generic AI is just too risky, what happens? They go silent. They just stop posting altogether. But on platforms like LinkedIn, your social selling index, or SSI, actually decays if you go quiet. And when a profile's SSI drops below 30, boom, it triggers a massive 45% drop in inbound opportunities. That is a highly measurable hit to the bottom line, simply because the algorithm penalizes you for inconsistency. The visual drop-off here is just stark. The correlation between inactivity and lost deals is immediate and undeniable. It absolutely proves we need an automated solution. But, and this is a big but, not just any automation. We need a system that actually maintains high-quality, factual consistency to beat the algorithm. And we need it to do that without a human having to manually babysit and verify every single syllable. Which brings us to Section 2, Anatomy of a Local RAG, and the contrast between a simple wrapper and a true system. Let's see exactly how an adaptive continual learning system puts those basic AI wrappers to absolute shame. This is where the engineering gets really elegant. Enter the SSI Booster. Right from the definition, it's clear this isn't just taking some text, firing off an API call to an LLM, and just crossing your fingers. No way. It's an adaptive, continual learning automation system. Unlike those cloud-based API wrappers we talked about, this is a fully localized RAG system. It uses rigorous, strict data grounding. That means every single post is generated using real projects, real numbers, and a real technical voice pulled directly from a private persona graph. When you look at the direct comparison, it's pretty night and day. Off-the-shelf cloud AI totally risks your proprietary data privacy, and it almost always fails at capturing that nuanced brand voice. But the SSI Booster, it strictly protects that proprietary data because it runs locally, all while perfectly replicating a highly technical brand voice. Basically, you get the massive time savings of AI, but with the strict compliance and safety you'd expect from an entire human review team. Moving on to Section 3, the intelligence stack. This is the fun part. Let's peek under the hood and really geek out on the actual engineering stack powering this thing. How do you actually build something this robust to run entirely on local hardware? Well, for starters, it's not just one massive model doing all the heavy lifting. It's a beautifully orchestrated stack. First up, it uses SPI-C, which is an industry standard for natural language processing, to extract core themes and filter out the noise. Then, it uses Model 2 Vec as this ultra-fast categorizer that requires absolutely zero APIs. For retrieval, it leans on the BM25 Okapi search algorithm, and this is crucial because BM25 provides deterministic lexical retrieval of facts. It doesn't guess, it matches actual hard text. Finally, it ties all of this together with an in-memory Network X knowledge graph. And looking at the macro architecture flow, everything, and I mean everything, runs locally via the Llama engine. Zero cloud dependencies. None. Once the content is generated and validated, it pushes directly into a Postgres analytics database for logging and then routes the actual post straight to the Buffer GraphQL API for scheduling. It is a completely self-contained pipeline from that first spark of ideation all the way to publication. Okay, section 4. Building a truth gate and validating the data. Because let's face it, the smartest intelligence stack in the world is completely useless if it hallucinates facts. So let's diagnose how the developers engineered a multi-layered truth gate to stop that in its tracks. The system sequentially filters every single generated sentence through 4 distinct layers. Let's step through them. First, BM25 evidence scoring checks if the claim actually exists in the source text. Second, it calculates what's called a derivative of truth score. We'll touch on that in just a second. Third, a spacey semantic similarity floor ensures the meaning hasn't drifted away from the source. And finally, step 4, named entity recognition, or NER, validates organization names. It even integrates with U.S. government's Conzilla data to ensure absolute factual integrity for external claims. It's incredibly thorough. You can see the routing logic play out perfectly here. Any unsupported claims are aggressively pushed down into a trash or block buffer before anything ever has the chance to touch your live feed or scheduling queue. Basically, only sentences that manage to survive all 4 layers of this intense scrutiny are cleared for publishing. The math behind that second layer is honestly fascinating. The system uses this composite truth gradient score. So every sentence gets scored based on evidence quality, reasoning strength, and source credibility. If that score drops below 0.35, the system throws a red flag and just removes it. Using probabilistic logic networks, it tracks the truth trajectory of every single claim and quite literally just automatically drops anything that scores too low. It's ruthless, which is exactly what you want when your brand reputation is on the line. Bringing us to our final section, Section 5, Continual Learning and Memory. Let's examine how the system's memory allows it to continuously optimize its output over time. Because an agent that doesn't learn from its past actions is, well, really just a script. Now, this is where the real magic happens. By leveraging a pure Python in-memory NetworkX knowledge graph, the agent actually learns from what you publish. It actively maps out your skills, your projects, and the domain facts it extracts over time. So whenever you curate an article or approve a post, the system ingests that specific knowledge, building out this constantly expanding persona-aware re-ranker. It remembers what works, it penalizes repetition to keep your feed feeling fresh, and it constantly adapts to your specific professional taste. And the reason it does all of this incredibly complex mapping is ultimately to conquer the LinkedIn algorithm, which relies heavily on these 4 exact pillars you see here. The knowledge graph continuously optimizes its automated schedule to ensure your content hits all 4 of these categories evenly. It makes absolutely sure that the algorithm constantly favors your profile, steadily raising your social selling index, and you don't even have to manually calculate which pillar you need to focus on today. So the end result of all this brilliant engineering is just entirely seamless. The tool takes the raw source data, ruthlessly validates the facts through the local terminal using that strict 4-layer truth gate, and then seamlessly queues up the perfect post directly into your buffer schedule. We are talking about achieving a 90% reduction in manual posting time while safely and perfectly replicating a highly technical brand voice. I really hope this teardown sparked some fresh ideas for your own tech stack. Seeing how tools like Spatie, a local Llama engine, and a NetworkX graph can completely automate away an 80-hour manual workflow is just incredibly inspiring. It leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative question to chew on as you go build your next agent. How will you implement truth gating and local RAG to completely transform your own engineering workflows? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you all next time.